welcome to episode 105 of my POA podcast, Black Hand and Beyond. It's storming again in Oklahoma tonight, but not as bad as it was 2 weeks ago when we planned this episode. We had a great episode last week, 104, the recap of the banquet, the POAC banquet, and what used to be the National Convention. That was a good time in Dubuque. Thanks for everybody that watched that show, and thank you again to Chuck and Maxine Shingleton and their stallion docs Ruff and Zip for sponsoring last week's show. So this was supposed to be episode 104 2 weeks ago, and we had really bad weather. It's not quite as bad tonight. It's just really windy. The Texas Roadhouse Texas flag's about ready to rip off and go to Texas. So the wind's coming from the north and headed straight south. So it's starting to rain a little bit, and I know my brother said they might get a blizzard tomorrow in Minnesota, so at least it's not that bad here. So tonight's episode is like I said, episode 105, David Wood, who grew up in California. He's got a lot of cool stories. We're a few minutes late tonight because him and I was chatting. I should have called him about a half an hour early, but then we probably would have talked over the show too much before you guys joined. And I see Jan Rogers from Iowa's in here. So at this time, I'm going to introduce David, who now lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Good, no problem. Thanks for being on. I never met you. Of course, we grew up in two different kind of generations, not very far off, but my family wasn't even in POAs when you aged out. I won't tell anybody how old you are. I'll let them do the math. You aged out in 1978, right?
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah, and they'd raised it when you were growing up. It was 17 for a while, wasn't it? Aged out at 17?
Yeah, my sister aged out at 17,
okay,
and so I got her horse a year early, actually. It was kind of nice, but yeah, 18 was...
18 was good, yeah. And now they have youth. I mean, they have adult. They have a lot of adult classes nowadays. So, people can keep growing. And, of course, they're 14 hands now, too. So, and they're a little stockier, the POAs. I know you guys in California had some pretty modern-looking ponies in the 70s, but all over now they use a lot of horse blood, and they're just bigger. The POAs are way bigger. Instead of the stock pony look, they're more of the horse look, the little horse look. So,
that changed just as I was leaving, and because of Facebook, I'm able to kind of sit back and watch this breed. It's impressive. The whole type has changed.
They are. They're impressive. I wish we could stand on a mountaintop and tell everybody, how good these POAs are, and because they are, and they have a lot of good. Some people have a good friend who's an Angus breeder, one of the biggest Angus breeder in Minnesota. His family is, and he said one time he was picking on me. This was 30 years ago, and he said, "Well, you guys are it's a crossbreed. It ain't even a true. You can still breed the horses." I'm like, "Well, how do you think Angus and everything else come about?" So a lot of things come about from breeding and stuff. But POA now there's there's 8, 9, 10 generations of POAs without horse in them, but people still outcross. So we're looking at a picture here of I know the POA you rode that's not this one, but the POA you rode when you were older was Bomber. But we're going to go before him a little bit when you first grew up in POAs. And are you watching the slideshow too, or?
Yeah, I was able to get this up. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Perfect. Yeah, when you asked about what was going on in the 70s, I thought, well, in our little area of the woods, which we lived in a little suburb of Los Angeles, there was a couple. Loretta Crabtree had a stallion. She was like 2 blocks over. It was a suburb, but people had lots big enough to have a horse or two. And then there was another lady. I just thought of this. Her last name was Sweet. And she had some POA that placed in a big endurance riding contest.
Okay.
That up in the Sierra somewhere. But what you're looking at, that's my family. That's me with the trophy.
Okay.
And how this came about was one of the people I just mentioned, my dad probably knew he was a physician, probably one of his patients, sold him some raffle tickets. That was how they were promoting the breed at the time. So he bought a raffle ticket for each kid, and my ticket came up. So that's what we're looking at. That's my younger brother, Michael, Darcy. Some people on the call might know them. Okay. On the 3 over by my dad, that's Susan, who rode for a year or two, and my 2 older sisters, who they never rode, but they were hanging out and helping out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember this pony's name?
Navajo's Princess.
Navajo's Princess. I think I've probably seen that in the magazine or something. I know
Oh,
I
wow.
did in the stud books for sure. So the early stud books.
And we had two Shetlands, and my sister Susan and Darcy, the two younger sisters, they broke them. But when we got this, it changed everything. And my sister started training this one when she was old enough to start showing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, he was old fashioned for sure, POA, you know what I mean? But that's a long time ago. So, what part of California did you grow up in?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, okay. Yeah, that was funny. Go ahead.
Yeah, he had a practice out of Burbank, so we were just around there.
Okay. He was a doctor or a surgeon or?
Physician,
Physician, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, OBGYN.
Oh, okay. So I was born, my two brothers and I were all born in Long Beach, California. I think I mentioned that to you. Yeah. So, but I was born in 72, and then they moved away in 73 because it was already getting, it was kind of helter-skelter days and stuff like that. So my dad moved the family to Minnesota, and my brothers and I never forgave him for it. So no, it's all right. Yeah. I just don't know why he moved to so cold, but from paradise in California to cold. But I understand.
There's a family from Long Beach also that showed horses, the Creans. I'll talk about them in a little bit. But,
okay.
They were big in the show circuit. The guy here, he deserves credit. His name is Dale Allen.
Okay.
And he was an aerospace engineer out of the South Bay.
Okay.
But he eventually got what was his stallion? He had a 7M stallion, a leopard that he brought in.
Okay.
But I think he was a board member, influential. He brought the horse over to the house.
Was his name Renegade, maybe? 7M Glorious Renegade?
Yeah,
that's my superpower. So, and we didn't talk about this beforehand. That's like plus 40 years ago. I remember some things. No, not right.
so well. Dale's a nice guy. His wife Marion, and they had two boys that were the same age as myself and my brother. So when we would hang out at horse shows, we would get into some mischief, doing this or that, playing in the water.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna get to some of the pictures here. There's that Navajo's Princess under saddle, I believe. So when she got a little older. Yeah. Cute headed pony for sure. And then there's some pictures of some boys playing in the creek there with some sticks.
That's up in Watsonville, which is beautiful country It's up Gilroy, up in that whole area. Artichoke capital of the world. I remember when we drive into town, that was what they were known by.
Artichoke capital of the world. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me and my brother and the two Dale and Marion's two kids.
Okay. All right.
Same group of hoodlums. Yeah.
And then some of these are out of order. I know that I couldn't, I'm not smart enough to put them in order. So there's just random pictures, but we don't have to go by the slideshow so much. We can, if you see one, you can call it out. But yeah, you can just kind of tell your story a little bit about basically growing up in California and how many people showed, and there was some stallions you might remember and families. And then I know you went to Illinois in 76, and then of course the International was in California in 77. So them got to be cool memories for you. But
there were some fun times. Met a lot of really great people. Some still stay in touch with to this day.
Isn't that something? That's special. You're talking 40, like you said, 40 plus years ago. So almost 50 now.
So what was going on with that previous lady, if you don't mind just popping back?
Okay.
This lady, this young lady who's now old, she got this horse, the one you're looking at here, Bomber. Her name is Candy Felsinger. Her dad was Coy Felsinger. And this was the show, I think, before the Pomona International, 70. So this was in 1970. She was aging out this year. And at this point in time, it was all the California shows. I just remember the Gymkhana, they'd have one or two classes.
Okay.
And it was run during lunch. So not big on what they call games back east, but the Gymkhana classes. And most of the kids would just walk or trot their horses around the barrels. But she had this animal and trained him up. I should give her full credit for this animal's performance. and she rode another horse called Kona Cat. So she'd take two horses into the gaming events, and it was pretty impressive to watch. She took him in the International 1970. He was the grand champion gelding stake, and I think she went High Point. Christy Shaw has chatted with me. I stay in touch with her a little bit through Facebook.
Okay.
She remembers meeting Candy, and she had the grand champion mare, I think, Bonnet.
Seven M's Warriors Bonnet could have been. And 70, I don't know. It might have been. I know. The Nemmers might have been out there in 72 and with Joe Barr, and then who else was out there? Goldenrod, Keystone. Keystone would have been out there. I know you remember him. Yeah.
And the Victors were out.
The Victors, yeah.
Because they had a bumper sticker. Covadis was here, and they put it all over the fairgrounds. It was
Did they really? They were promoters. Let me tell you, Howard Victor was a promoter. Yeah, and Wanda. I got to know Wanda real well. You know, Howard passed away when I was still in high school. I think I was a senior in high school when he passed away. But Wanda stayed in it for a long time. So that's Bomber before he kind of, he still had some roan on him there and stuff, some color. So.
Yeah.
Or did he look like that the whole time? I usually see black and white pictures of him. So,
what you're doing for the breed is capturing all the. I had no idea about the background of Bomber with the dragon, but I do know his papers had DD Dragon, Dragon, and then a bunch of unknowns.
Right.
It was.
Right. Yeah, they'd put Mexican Mustang or unknown. Yeah, and because a lot of those horses, Dragon, we really don't know. His breeding, it was wild horses, Appaloosas and ponies in Mexico, but who knows? They were running.
Yeah, that was a good podcast. I actually enjoyed that one very much.
Thanks. I need to probably redo some of those because there's people, a lot of people get into POAs year after year, and then they need to go back and watch these. So we have some people watching here from Oklahoma, Iowa, Ohio. So here's Bomber running, and of course this picture became famous because I remember these pamphlets, getting them when I got POA collections. These would be in there because I have like Murfeld's collection now and a lot of people's who passed away, Carl House from Minnesota, Oz, and people like that. And this was like a trifold pamphlet, I think, or something like that with his picture on the cover. So of it, Mason City. It was still in Mason City then, so it changed in 84, 85. It went to where it is now, Indianapolis. So let's see.
My dad took this picture. We had just bought the horse, which is a funny story in itself. We were at the Christmas banquet, and during the banquet, somebody came up to my father because this horse was going to be a silent auction, mail in your bid, and the highest bid would get it. I think Candy needed some money to go to college, and she had aged out, and the horse was still relatively young. Amazing athlete. So we didn't put a bid in, but somebody came up to my dad, and I won't say who it was, but he said, Doc, I heard you bought Bomber. Since you don't have any kids that can ride well enough, I'd like to buy him from you. So when we got home that night, the phone call was made, and we bought the animal. No one had so it was.
That's pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was that's on top of the pad. We had 6 acres, but it was all on a hill. So that was our riding ring, which pretty much 3 of the sides were steep cliffs. So it was good for teaching rollbacks. So of course, had to lift up the feet going around. But yeah, we turned them loose and let them run a little bit, and that happened to snap out.
So did you have shows pretty close to you then in Los Angeles, or did you have to travel a ways?
They had a few down at the Pickwick. It's now the LA Equestrian Center. That was 10 minutes. Castaic, 20 minutes up the road. But California is a big state. So we would, it would usually, if you travel, it's going to take you taking a day or two off school.
Right. Yeah. Well, California stayed a big club for a long time. Now it's kind of inactive, unfortunately. It's not very, very big now, but that's happened to a lot of our regional clubs. It's kind of the center of the United States is still pretty strong, but the Northwest, Southwest, all those regions are a little smaller, of course. But I'm just going to flip through some of these pictures. This is a girl riding bomber here. I don't know if this is the one before you. She's jumping over straw bales.
It's not going, but it's probably my sister Darcy. She's
That's
wearing
Darcy.
a bandana.
Oh, yep, wearing a bandana. Yep.
Yeah. So we got him, and we sent in. We called up the home office because they just come out with this Supreme Champion thing about that time.
Yep.
And yeah, that's Darcy. It looks like Ventura. And it's probably Pat Lalonde. I don't know how they do this, but they added up all the shows this horse had been in the 60s up, and they said he's got it all, but he's a little short on the Gymkhana point, the game points, timed event. So because they didn't have them really, and when it was just a few ponies.
Right.
So Darcy finished him off his Supreme Champion, I think 72. He would have been probably the first Supreme Champion out of California.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's cool.
That
I
was
remember
like a story.
hearing his name, Bomber, and that one you mentioned earlier that the girl rode. I remember him too. That she said
Koenig.
that she won with. I can't remember Kona Cat. When you mentioned Kona Cat, I remember writing that name down in studies. So, yep, there's.
Yeah, Coy heard Candy's dad. I've heard this story years ago at Ventura. He would always. So there was no prejudice when he was timing the Gymkhana, the games. He would clock her an extra second just so there was no ambiguity. It was just a nice guy.
Wow. Yeah. Well, sometimes it's hard to find help. You know what I mean? So you got to end up doing that.
Yeah, they didn't have the electric eye or anything
Right.
back then. I guess. Yeah, it wasn't equitation, pleasure. Those classes were full, but
Right.
The games not so much. That changed, though, very shortly. That changed. That's my sister, probably up in Grants Pass, someplace in Oregon, it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big open sky, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, that's a good picture, too. Oh, here he is working cattle. There's a little old Winnebago or a camper behind. It might just be a camper on a truck. But, yeah, that's a cool picture, too.
So they actually had a cow cutting class, and I don't think that he's ever seen a cow. My sister had. But you just enter you sign up and you do it.
Right. I imagine Dragon's seen some wild stuff, his relatives, but his bomber never seen a cow. Yeah, that's funny. So
Yeah,
we
I've
have
seen
some people
pretty
from
horses.
Australia watching now, so that's cool. Gay English and Ann from Australia is watching. Tracy Keene's in here now. She was, but she's commenting now, so that I know. I can't tell just who's all watching sometimes unless they comment. So, okay, this isn't Bomber, so this is somebody else. I'll let you catch up with and this is probably your sister. Again, it might be somebody totally different. You sent me a lot of pictures, so thanks for that.
Oh, yeah, use what you like, and it was interesting process going through those. I'm not seeing this change, but
It'll come here pretty quick.
yeah. But up in Oregon, that's the time my dad we met Carl Shepard, and he had what was his horse's name? Carl Shepard had Barbob.
Barbob, yeah.
Barbob, and so we made several trips up there to breed to Barbob with some of the mares, and came out with some nice fillies, some of which I think I sent you some pictures. Maybe
Okay, they're probably going to be in here. Yeah, Barbob, that was from Illinois too. 7M's Warriors Barbob, and then that ended up being, quite a bit of blood in Oregon. That blood spread a lot for sure. Barbobs.
Yeah, my dad took down to the airport. Went Dean Kenny, Dale Allen, and my dad. They went to the sale, and my dad came back with this one, KG Lady, which was 7M Warriors.
Okay.
I think she won, I think, as a yearling or something. But my dad came home with this and another mare, PH Rocket Star.
Okay.
So that's my sister showing that one.
Okay. Pine Hills is PH's. Pine Hills, yep, they had Pine Hills Rocket Dot and horses like that. PH's Tim Maria later, and horses like that were put POA as well known. They were from Minnesota. Okay, I'm going to move on. Here's some generations. I think it might be your sister with a kid and wrapping papers involved and a dog, and there's a lot going on in this picture.
That's Christmas time.
Yeah.
And that's my oldest sister there holding the wrappings and the dog. That's my sister just right. I just like it with the light coming through, and it was a year round. Like that's Christmas, and Southern
That's
California.
Christmas in Southern California. Wow, they're still green, yeah. And now you just told me on the phone that North Carolina, it's starting to green up there already too. So, uh,
Yeah, the pollen's starting to fall.
yeah,
Yeah, that's Darcy.
okay. Yeah, there's quite a few black and white pictures in here too, and then there's some colored ones later. We'll get to some of them with you wearing the Honda shirt and stuff. I know people were commenting about some of those on Facebook. But this is an arena shot here we're looking at now. A lot of those ponies looked alike. You know, they were roan. Seemed like there was a lot more roans back then. And
When this one flips, is it kind of an aerial shot looking down on a couple horses?
yeah, it's inside. I think it's inside,
Okay.
but yeah, it's.
So yeah, that I thought I'd throw that in because that's Jet K and Kathleen Yielding, I do believe. My sister on Bomber, they're waiting. So it's one of those classes where you wait to do your like reining or something. And then PH's Rocket Star with my sister's high school chum that rode for a year or two. But it's somewhere up in Oregon or Washington with a covered roof to keep the rain off you.
Okay, yeah. That's what it looked like because it's got that big wooden fence, but then it looked like it was kind of indoors. So, or, you know, at least roofed anyway, the way it was lit. So, yeah, there's probably some ponies in there that a lot of people would know for sure. I'm recognized.
It might be Ellensburg, Washington. That comes to mind.
Okay.
Don't ask me what I did yesterday.
Well, yeah, right. Tracy Keene grew up in Washington. She lives in Florida now. She might know. She might recognize that. She grew up in the 80s in Washington. So anyway, I'm going to move on. Okay, here's the picture in Nevada with Bomber and then Keystone. I know you sent this in to me. You wanted to talk about that.
The one only, they actually had a show in Vegas. And so that's, Keystone, my sister, and Bomber. And I remember the adults and my older sisters all got to go out to a nightclub. And I think Becky Victor, and my sister were hanging out. Yeah, it was a fun time.
Yeah. The Stardust Hotel, Horseman's Park, Las Vegas, Nevada. You can't see Las Vegas, but you know that's what it is. It says AS Nevada, so you know it's Las Vegas. But
yeah, it's right there on the strip. Yeah, it's long gone now, I'm sure. But
Tracy said maybe Tacoma. Was that one place up in Tacoma, Washington? Maybe. I don't know.
Could be.
Could be. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a cool picture here. I'll try to include some more of these pictures in posts in time. So here you are now. This will catch up in a minute, but you're flying. Was your favorite class the games, Gymkhana, or?
Oh yeah, going fast. That was always the fun. But you know, the foundation helps to have the proper leads and gates to actually execute that. It's just not flat out speed. So it was all fun,
right?
And meeting the people. But yeah, the games were definitely fun.
This is a good picture here. You just stuck the flag in your hand, your arm's still out, and you got the reins in your left hand.
Yeah, I appreciate you describing them because the slides aren't keeping up on my. Yeah, that would have been Castaic. That's about 20 minutes up the road up in the hills that separate Bakersfield from Los Angeles.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like the stands are kind of built into the side there, and there's a tree. That's pretty cool picture. So I'd never seen a lot of these pictures that you sent me. You know, I'd seen a couple of them of Bomber and stuff like that, but I'd never seen a lot of these action shots. So.
Kent, I hadn't seen them for 40 years myself, so it was.
So I'm good. I should package this and sell this to regenerate memory. So just watch. You don't need to take pills or jellyfish stuff. Just watch the Black Hand and Beyond to regenerate your memories. So now we're on a picture. You're showing you're in a ring in California somewhere. I imagine there's a girl holding a big ribbon, and you're standing like in halter. Her showmanship with Bomber. He looks like he's starting to get a little older. You got a mustache, all right?
Oh, good. Oh, there we are. That's Norco.
That's Norco. Okay.
Extremely active club back then. The Owens family, instrumental. I gotta send a shout out to these parents that worked their behinds off to put all this stuff together. And in my era in Norco was Debbie Gary.
Okay.
She was the driving force out there. That's just a lot of work. looking back on it, I don't know how they did all that and kept the family going. But yeah, that's Norco, and it's probably one of his last times I showed him at Halter. That's when
Okay.
they're getting up there. Yeah.
Norco and Riverside, them were big areas in POAs, weren't they? Like Suncrest was, I think, in Riverside, wasn't it? Pat Patrick. She had Suncrest,
Yes.
Uncle Sam, and some of those, and then later she had a whole bunch. She bred for a long time.
She had a stallion that my dad actually got interested enough to drive out and take a look at. So yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
but she was more of a breeder than a shower.
Right. She ended up, she showed her babies or had people show her babies, but then later she had people show, haul the national events for her, and her stuff went all over the country. She raised some nice POAs. She used a lot of Appaloosa bloodlines in her stuff too, but she became a well-known breeder for sure. She's in the Hall of Fame. So some of these people from California probably should be in the Hall of Fame, like Bob Lang and Denny Kenny probably should be. I don't think Denny's in the Hall of Fame, but I know he did a lot for California.
Yeah, Dean was a big promoter.
Dean,
yeah,
yeah.
and Dale. Yeah.
And yeah.
So my dad would go up to see bed to Barbob a few times. And one time when he came back with this box that had this costume in it. So this was Carl Shepard's wife actually made this costume for the grandkid who, Glenn, I think his name was. He aged out. And so my dad came back with this, and that's when we started showing the costume class. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's loud colored. A lot of work went into that.
Years of work, I am sure, from
Oh yeah. That's, you gotta be talented to do that stuff. Oh.
Yeah, it weighed probably close to 40 pounds.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Here's more of a traditional picture now. It's like showmanship or halter. You're standing there close with him. Leroy, somebody took the picture. It says there's a name on the bottom.
Yeah, I think I was a local photographer for Southern California. I think he did the International in '77. Okay. That's a good picture of his eye. The horse had personality.
Yeah, he looked like he did. They don't all have to be big old looking like quarter horses. You know what I mean? Even today, they look like horses, but there's some that, they're very versatile, and sometimes it's more than just their shiny color and stuff like that. So, yeah, he did have. I wish I would have got to know him, but he was a little before my time. So,
yeah.
How long did he live to? Do you remember how long he stuck around?
He passed away at the age. He would have been about 16.
Okay.
Maybe 16 or 18. He developed cancer. Yeah.
Oh, okay. He sure looked like he liked to go fast. He put that tail out there. He's jumping a board here, a pole on Straba Hills.
Yeah, I think they call that scurry. That's up in the local mountains,
right.
Up in Tehachapi.
Okay.
They're going to put a high-speed rail through there, actually. It'll be, and then if that ever goes through.
Oh, really?
Connecting Northern and Southern California has to go through these mountains. And
oh, man.
I don't think, technically it's going to be an impossible task. But that animal, he loved to run. And if you put that hackamore on him, he was a different horse if he had a bit in his mouth.
He knew it was go time, didn't he, when you put the
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I had one judge come up to me and say, "Is this the same horse I saw 5 minutes ago?" I said, "Yeah."
Yeah, that's him. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
Not a great picture, but I came across this, and this was one of the hardest things I had to do when showing you. It was a trail class, and you had to walk up to that and jump over.
Oh, really?
And
you had
somehow I did it.
Yeah, you see he's pushing off there. Yeah, that's cool. So I went to another picture for a minute, and I went away from it. There was a silo. This doesn't look like California. This looks like Illinois or Iowa, but the ponies are muddy.
This is Iowa. This is
okay.
This is in here, and if any of the grinders are on, this is your ring. And the reason is, if you wanted to show and go for the year-end national, you had to get out of California. It's just a logistics thing. Right. So you only hit so many shows in California, and going to Northern California, you could almost make it to the Midwest. So we would go for the summer, hit the international, and in '78, my sister really wanted to promote Mrs. Darcy. She had started a horse showing business at that point. So we hit for the summer, and those are long long layovers between shows, but you can hit a couple shows on a weekend in the Midwest.
Right.
It's strategically the best place. But Anita and my mom talked at the International. I think afterwards we came up to Grinders Ranch and they hosted us for a week. This is Apache's War Cry and Bomber turned loose in their ring after being in a stable for a week, and they're just having a great time.
They got some of that Iowa mud on them, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. I knew that picture was from the Midwest because that's where I grew up. I'm like, I don't think they have silos like that in Los Angeles. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I'm friends with the Grinders still to this day on Facebook. Facebook's a great thing to stay in touch.
Facebook is, yeah, I like it because of that. Because sure, I've found people like you and other people, you know, or you found me, and it's cool because I can do a lot of research on there and discover people. Or sometimes grandkids, I'll be like, hey, was your dad so and so, or your grandpa so and so, and they'll say, yeah. Sometimes I miss, but usually I find them. Here's a Potter photo. He was pretty well-known POA photographer, I think. I'm not sure where he was based out of, but I know he took pictures of Barkeeper and Double Tough and POAs that became famous. You're pole bending here, it looks like.
Yeah, this is Estes Park for sure. I don't know if it's international or the World Show, but
right, there was both of them there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, here's a crazy picture. There's balloons and you're jumping.
Oh,
you're jumping something they wouldn't probably do nowadays.
So this was Ventura, and this is what they called this Gambler's Choice.
Okay.
Again, don't ask me what I did yesterday, but this is, my gosh. This was a timed event, jumping. Each fence had different points. And you had to do each, I think the rules were you had to do each fence once, and you could do any course you wanted. So we studied this. I remember working with my sister, and we worked out the most ingenious thing to get the most points. There was just one flaw in our plan. It included, after one of these, for me to do a rollback and then come back and take it again. And I'd never done a rollback in an English saddle. Anyway, and neither had the horse. So I don't think I fell off. But something happened that made the whole thing go sideways. The plan didn't work.
The plan didn't work quite. Best laid plan. Sometimes it didn't work. Yeah.
But that was an interesting course. Yeah. Because you had to come up with some strategy.
That's funny because later Gambler's Choice became like a kart class, you know, like a four-wheel kart class. But yeah, that's cool. I just seen those poles. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of poles. That's a lot of work to set that up. And they had numbers. So yeah, the points, that makes sense now. You're jumping the 100-point one.
Oh, do they have points on it?
Yeah.
And I think that's the Grinders motorhome in the background there.
Oh, okay. All right. So here's the picture that I put on Facebook. It's the one, again, you're in the Honda jersey. You must have liked to ride motorcycles when you're young, or maybe you still do. I don't know.
After the '76 International, I haven't touched a motorcycle. I was in there for a week, so in the hospital.
You might as well tell that story. What you want of it, you don't have to tell all of it, but.
No, that's fine. No, after the International, I was riding they called these little motorcycles and going over, missed a culvert, hit the other side of a ditch, went flying, and ended up spending a week in Northbrook, Illinois, in the regional medical center.
Wow.
Got to meet some nice doctors.
Your parents probably were thrilled, huh? They had to stay.
Yeah, Mom was. We got to see Chicago. That was nice. We laid back. Yeah.
Got to see. Yeah, that was the '76 International, wasn't it, in Northbrook? So.
Yeah.
So did you meet some of the Midwestern kids about your age, like Julian Nemmers and Kevin Jewell and some of those guys?
Knew Kevin and Julian there, about a year older.
Okay.
Marty Bonison, the Grinders.
Yeah.
Met a lot of nice people.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, that's what made it. It's fun competing, fun riding, but also the people made it all worthwhile.
Right. So now I got the picture on. You told me I didn't know what this deal was. Now it makes sense. And go ahead and tell this story.
76 7 Ventura International. I come out of this Indian the costume class. I'm coming out, and Dean Kenny grabbed me, and he was tied in with Hollywood, always had a camera, and he was, I think, a board member for a while, actively involved.
Yeah.
Anyway, he grabbed me, and he said, come with me. We went across the fairgrounds where there was a blood drive going on, and he had me donate blood in the Indian costume while he took pictures. I remembered the guy who was in charge of this, probably a nurse, did not want that animal in here when they stuck the needle in my arm.
Right.
So there's no needle in my arm. But then another one, the horse will be seen in the doorway.
Okay.
That's when they
Yeah,
got
you
me.
sent me quite a few pictures of it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, these are Dean. Probably got these. The family got these from Dean after the fact. He probably sent them in.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no horse there.
Whatever happened to that costume? You remember?
When my parents passed, it was still there, and it is in a box, and it is in my garage. And every once in a while, I think I should give it or sell it to somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. There's that picture where he's standing in the doorway. That's cool.
There he is.
Now that you know the back, his hooves are right on the threshold there. That's a pretty cool picture. But yeah, I couldn't for the life of me. Now I can see you got a blood pressure cuff on and you have a little pad under your arm. But at first I thought, well, I wonder if he got hurt or what happened.
Yeah, no, it was, probably the first time I donated blood, so I didn't know you're going to come out of here a little dizzy. And
Right.
So the next thing was pole bending, and I think I left 2 poles up, and so when
You
I
hit
exited
some
the
pole-
ring,
Yeah.
yeah, when I exited the ring, the gate guy looks at me and says, "You missed 2." Yeah,
You missed it. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, everybody's a smart aleck. You should have said, hey, I was helping America. I was donating blood. So.
yeah.
Here's a different one now. Did you see this one already? Yeah.
Yeah, this is 7. This was a filly that we bred out of KG Lady. So this is I guess a lineage down the Moser 7M.
Okay.
And she was quite nice. Had a quarter rear end and nice refined head.
Right. Yeah, they bred some nice ones, and they went out to like Oregon, like you said, Bar Bob and Renegade, and there was quite a few that went out west. So.
Yeah, this could be a Bar Bob or Renegade. I know we sent KG Lady out to Allen's for Renegade.
Okay.
And I put these in just because the people in the background, I actually know that's George Lalonde and
Yep.
Olin Ziegler.
Olin Ziegler, yeah, he was president at the time, and of course George was the executive secretary. So, yep, it looks like Olin's wife's in the background there too, and so is George's wife, Pat. So, yeah, I didn't get to meet Lalonde's. I did meet Ziegler's. I actually went out to their house when I was about 14 and got to see some right before they sold out. They had some great mares, and they had some Doc Stuff Tiger Daughters. They had Landon Sweetheart was a famous brood mare they had. She's in the Hall of Fame. So, yeah, next to Olin, you look like you're about 6'4". I don't know how tall a guy you are, but
shade over 6. So,
shade over 6. Yeah, I remember as a teenager being about the same height as Olin. So, yeah.
Back then I probably a little shorter now. Yeah, Lalonde's had a nice kid. Their daughter, I got to be friends with Patricia.
Patricia, yeah. I did a story about Lalonde's too on here. So, or Lalonde's. I grew up saying Lalonde, and when I did that interview with her, she said they pronounce it Lalonde. And I'm like, well, there, you should know, you know. So now I do that too. So you learn stuff late in life sometimes. But this, I bet, was at the international show in '75. I'm guessing because Potter's the photographer.
I am impressed. Yeah, I had no intention of going in this. Didn't even know what it was. But that is Kathy Coates out of Bakersfield.
Okay.
No, actually, Palmdale, I think, Lancaster. Yeah. Anyway, she approached. This has something to do with the book I gave you, actually.
Oh, okay.
This little story. She said, you know, we got to do match pairs, but and I said, you know, whatever. Okay. I don't have any clothes that match that, so we had everything but a white shirt, and so Bob Lang happens to be walking by at the time, and Kathy says, "Do you have a white shirt, Bob, we could borrow?" And he gave me the shirt literally off his back. He just took it off. And so that's Bob Bob Lang shirt.
That's Bob Lang's shirt. Wow, you guys do look matched. You got your sweater vests and your handkerchief scarves there, and
Yeah,
looks pretty
they
cool.
pulled it together at the last second.
Did her pony look like yours?
Yeah, it was 39er Bardot.
Okay, I know that horse. I'll try to find a picture of that maybe tonight if I'm bored or if it's storming out. Tomorrow I'm off work, so sometimes if there's nothing good on Netflix,
With the storm.
I'll watch. Yeah, I'll watch her go through my garage and look for pictures or on my phone. So here's some more jumping pictures of you and Bomber. So. Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to get Boomer and Bomber mixed up. I think I told you that story because there was a POA named Boomer, but he didn't have as much color on him. And I think he was related to Dragon too, I believe. But I don't know, I'm slipping a little bit too. I'm in my 50s now, but life's starting to get in the way, and I'm starting to forget some stuff about history. So, okay, here it is. So I got them out of order. Here's the picture of the two. 39er Bardot, and what was her name again that rode with you in the match pair?
And Kathy Coates, yeah.
Okay.
And her older sister, Susie.
Yep, okay.
And I think I probably had just come out of a games class or something. And so Bomber was a little hyped up. And so when we reversed, little trivia that she said, switch with me. So they reversed the class so the horses are like the opposite horse is no longer on the rail, he's on the inside, but that wasn't working, so we switched back. Probably. I said, okay.
That's a cool class. They don't do that class anymore, not at Congress anyway. I know they used to have family pleasure and stuff like that, and match pair, and yeah, they just don't do those anymore. So okay, I recognize some of these guys. I think the one might be a Cannon. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Over on the right.
That's Brian Cannon.
Yeah.
And I think Donna used to ride Poco Yazzie, and now Brian is. I think she's aged out at this point, 77. I think we're just hanging out, waiting to go into their vet class.
That's you in the middle, looking back at Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's that over on the left then?
I didn't know him too well. Nice kid, I think from the Midwest, Troy Chamberlain.
Okay. All right. Well, it's cool how you can meet people all over. That's what I liked about POAs and still do. Like, I met people this last weekend in Dubuque, Iowa that I'd never seen in person, and they're from all over. Some flew in, some drove in.
And with Facebook, it's kind of fun to get back because life moves fast, and it just keeps moving faster and faster as you get older and families and work. And
all right.
Facebook is kind of a nice way to kind of stay in touch.
Well, I stalked you on Facebook a little bit after I invited you to be a guest on here, and of course this was supposed to be 2 weeks ago, but I went through and I really admired you that life's moved on. You haven't, you aged out of the ponies a long time ago, but every once in a while there'd be a picture like this one and some others that you'd just pop up random. And then you'd throw a little thought, and I'm like, he really enjoyed POAs because all these years later, he's still putting some pictures on there, even though you don't even live in California anymore and you don't have the ponies, but it's great memories for you. I could tell that just by your Facebook page. So.
Yeah, it's also kind of fun where people don't know this side of you, and you can say, well, that's what I used to do, and they, yeah.
Right.
It would be fun to go to a show here one of these days, maybe. In the back on the rail, that is my younger brother.
Oh, okay. That's your.
And I just realized that. Wow.
He looks like he's got a sweater on or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Estes Park. Yeah, it would have been.
Park. So that looks like a railroad timber or something with a hide draped over it. That's going back a ways. They don't do stuff like that too much anymore. Now they do ranch trails, so they're getting a little ranchier again, a little more. They call regular trail city trail now, but back when you rode, it was a little more wild,
Yeah, they put some odd things. Hides, he did not like hides, but I never resorted to what I did see a couple of times is the kids would put the Vicks Vapor rub up the horse's nose.
Oh, yeah.
They have an animal, and it's not right. But he went over that, I do believe.
Yeah, it looks like he's got his ears perked forward, and he's stepping out there, so that's a good picture too. That looks like a Potter photo too. So
I think it is.
Yeah. I'd like to do an episode about his photographs, but tried to look him up. He's probably long gone, but just, not even on Facebook, just on the internet, and I couldn't find anything about the person. So I don't know where he was based out of. I know he took pictures in Colorado a lot, so he might have been a Western or a Colorado photographer. But there you are with I know it hasn't caught up. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No. Parker was a very good equine photographer.
Right. Later, I don't know if you ever heard of the horse Barkeeper, but he was bred in Utah, POA, and then he went to Colorado. He was a grandson of 3 Bars out of one of George Bishop's little pony mares, and he ended up being a pretty well-known POA. And he went over height for the day, which was 54. Then he was in later when it went up to 56, but because of that, they couldn't show him that much. They took some really good professional pictures of him, and Potter did those. So, and then he later in like 1980, he took a real good picture of Double Tough. I think it was in Sioux Falls. So, this looks like you're having a good time here with that costume again. So,
yeah, my sister Darcy took this photo. She printed it in 8x10. It sits up on the shelf somewhere in the house. I actually used this as a temporary profile picture on Facebook, and I got told to take it down.
Oh, really?
Times have changed, can't they? Have changed.
No, they've changed, yeah. The people probably thought you were making fun of it, and you're really, which, we've referred to it as Indian costume a few times tonight. Now they say Native American, Native American regalia or Native American costume, but things change, just like those pickups behind you, all those single cab pickups with campers on them. You can tell that's the 70s for sure. That's a cool picture. Look at them lined up there. Most of them are Chevys too. It looks like a GMC Chevy commercial. So, yeah, that's a cool picture.
Good trucks.
Yeah, good trucks. Okay, I think this is probably your sister. This is a cool picture too. You'll see it in a minute. She's got a cup in her hand and kind of looking down. So when did you move to North Carolina? You said about 6 years ago or so?
Yeah, we've been here about 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, looking to get. I have 4 kids, 2 with the first wife, 2 with the second, and the 2 were all done through college and on their own. We decided to make a move, and Charlotte opened up.
There you go. So, are you still working, or are you retired, or?
I love what I do, so I got a couple more years.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
My wife's working, and yeah, we keep pretty busy.
That's good. Yeah. Do you see this picture yet? Is this your sister?
I don't, but
okay, it'll come up pretty quick.
Yeah, usually I don't have a problem.
We might have somebody watching tonight that's from North Carolina. I know Tracy's sold a couple of her TC POAs to, I think Albie's her first name, Albie Horn in North Carolina. So, yeah, I like this picture. It looks just kind of a solitude moment there, solitary, her and her horse.
She was a nice kid. That's Ia Swambat. I took this picture and actually developed it because my first year in architecture school, they had us take a photography class. So, SS Jackpot, I think, was that stallion.
Okay, yeah, SS Jackpot. He was a snowcap. I know that horse. I didn't know that was him from that angle. If I would have seen his whole body, I might have recognized him. So that's cool. So is that what you do? You're an architecture or architect, I mean?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah, it keeps me pretty busy.
I can see taking pictures learning how to develop and take pictures back in the day would be important for something like that for architecture. So
I just thought I'd include this. This was the few times I saw my dad having some fun. So he actually came to it looks like this is Bakersfield, which had a great the McMath sisters, Julie and Laura.
Okay.
Texari,
yeah. Hoodoo Fox. A lot of people remember them too, yeah.
Yeah, I think they trained those animals and had them running, and they could move. So they were tough competition. Anyway, my dad got some kid's bike and was riding it around the fairgrounds of Bakersfield. So
He looked like he was having fun. Yeah.
Yeah, he he was born in a small prairie town in Saskatchewan, so he did not like the cold. He left there in 1958 and never came back.
Moved down to California.
Yeah. This is my brother-in-law and the firstborn grandkid, but the only reason this is it's just a great picture with my brother. He came up after the motorcycle accident.
Okay.
Because I had a scratched cornea. It was really, and so he helped us get back from Illinois back to California. That's my mom.
Okay, that's your mom.
She was always along.
Right. Well, that's good. I'm glad you threw that picture in there. So this picture here, a lot of people from the Midwest commented because they recognize Howard Victor and I'm pretty sure that's Howard Victor and his mare, Miss Margaret. You must have took that or somebody took that at a show. You included it in this batch. So, yeah.
Yeah, I checked that one just because, what's going on. This was, I think, after 76. I think we stopped by this show on our way home. And I just thought this mare was beautiful.
Yeah. She ended up winning Grand in California. Remember in 77, she was the Grand Champion mare, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah. So again, I'm getting a little rusty. You're holding trophies in quite a few pictures. You're standing next to girls and holding trophies. It wasn't a bad life, David.
Yeah. Well, I went to an all-boys high school, so this actually was not a bad sport to be in. Yeah, there was a lot of very cute girls.
Right.
Nice people.
Yeah.
This is up in Tehachapi, and that is Tammy Owen. They came out of Norco. They were, I showed horses with all of them. Sean is the younger sister. She still shows. In fact, I looked at some of her horses that she posted up. That's when I said, wow, this breed has evolved.
Right.
When they raised the height limit, it definitely benefited the breed, bringing the horse blood. But that's Tammy up, yeah.
Sean Weiss from California still has POAs. Did you know her? That's her?
That's her younger sister.
That's her younger sister.
Their last name.
Okay. All right.
I know them from their maiden names.
Right.
Yeah.
I know. That's why I like when people keep their original name, because I was like, you were kind of famous in the magazine and stuff in small circles. So, but then when you change your name, it's
there was Sean, that's Tammy, and then they had an older brother who's the same age as me, and that was Bobby.
Yeah. Okay.
And Bobby showed a horse. I think it was a gelding Carbon Copy.
Carbon Copy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But the Norco group was big and strong. They were, and so was Bakersfield.
Right. We need to get them back somehow. I don't know how to do it, but get some ponies in there and have some kids fall in love with them. That's how it happens. So.
Yeah. That's Julian Nemers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Julian Nemers. Yeah. He's a well-known horse trainer. He lives in Colorado. We just honored his dad at the POA banquet. His siblings came there. It was tough for Julian to get there out of state, but his brother and sisters made the trip because they still live right there in Dubuque and just across the border in Illinois. So, Julian, he was a well-known POA kid too, showing Double Tough. You got to see Double Tough then a few times, I'm sure.
I'm sure I was in the ring with him for a few of those. Yeah.
Yeah, you were in the ring. Yeah, he changed POAs. He was very modern looking. So I didn't recognize that was Julian. Of course, by the time I seen Julian, he was, looked more like Sam Elliott. He had gray hair and a mustache. So,
that's when I knew him. They all grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he and Kevin hung out a lot.
Yeah, they made some trips together. I had Kevin on an episode too. That was a pretty cool episode. A lot of stories, and Steve Bateman. I had him on a show. So.
My sister showed against Steve, and again, like the Grinders invited us up between shows, the Batemans invited us up, and we kind of hung out for a week.
Okay.
When you're traveling, it's what do you do between shows, and it's kind of very nice to open their home up to us.
And you learn a lot of stuff that way about different cultures, you know what I mean? Different people in different parts of the country. And, that was cool times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody has a sombrero on in this picture. So.
I'm not sure. Somebody gave this to me through Facebook a few years ago, and it might be. I think it's Kathleen LaValle in the middle. That's me over on the left, and on the right, it looks like Katrina Jerger from Illinois, but I could be wrong. But that's definitely the Ventura International, because those palm trees right at the ocean.
Okay. Do you remember? I think that was Good Time POAs. They had East Acres Tough to Beat. That was Mitchell's, I think, was their name. Do you remember that?
Kevin Mitchell. I showed with him. Good friend.
Okay.
And the Landmasters. That's who we kind of hung out with, was because those were the boys. And they bought, it was a double tough colt, wasn't it? And,
he was one of Double Tough's first foals, Tough to Beat, red and white.
And brought him out, beautiful animal. And then Kevin aged out, and some local girl out there in Norco went on to show him for a few more years.
Okay. So, and then, and then he sold to Minnesota and ended up being about 70 miles from where I grew up. So we got to breed to him. That was one of the first POA stallions I seen in person, was Tough to Beat. So.
Yeah, he was a pretty
He was pretty, yeah.
Good confirmation. This is 39er Bardot and Kathy Coates.
Okay.
And, I think I'd aged out, and I probably just showed up to say hello and took a few pictures.
Took some pictures. You were practicing. So here's you and Olin again, and of course George is in the background again of this picture. So.
Oh yeah, the 70s and the bell bottoms.
The bell bottoms, yeah, and
the hair.
And the hair, but the 80s, the hair was high and big too. So yeah, I like how you guys, like you're riding in the Honda jersey and stuff, and then for the awards banquet, you have a jacket on and, dressed up pretty good. So that's pretty cool.
Yep. Might have been my first jacket. I remember my mom saying, "You got to get a jacket for this thing."
So Sarah, she grew up, Sarah Franklin from Illinois. She raised her kids in POAs. She commented on this picture. She said she would have showed a little before you, but she knew the two gentlemen, Nick Nikovich and Frosty Estelle, both famous Illinois POA people. But she said, "Who's the youth? Who's the youth in the middle?" And people jumped on right away, and they said, "That's our first time seeing that California boy," because that would have been in Northbrook. So
that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew Gail Nikovich. That would have been probably his daughter.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Yeah.
He showed with Gail.
Okay. Yeah. So you won the saddle there, it looks like. So they had the ribbons. They were probably the chair people of the show. So they had their little things in their pockets.
Yeah, it was in Illinois, so they would have been putting this one on, I guess.
They were putting it on, yeah.
It's so much work what you guys do. It's impressive.
Yeah. Well, I never got to, I was in the breeding end of it and stuff. I have been on the board off and on, and I am currently, so I have to measure, but I usually let smarter people than me run the shows, because it is a lot of work, and all the points and stuff and the high points, and I'd rather just pick out a stallion and breed it to a mare and watch the baby. So speaking of babies, here you are holding a trophy and probably a late weanling, I'd say, maybe like futurity time.
Yeah, this would have been a Barbob colt, I do believe.
Okay.
Coming back from Oregon, probably the KG Lady. Yeah, I forgot all about this horse. But yeah, we bred this one, and I think it won a futurity or something.
California used to have a pretty good futurity back in the day. I know that. Even in the 80s and 90s, it did in the early 2000s. So.
Oh, wow.
Oh, here's some girls sitting on a fence and one guy eating watermelon. That's a good picture.
Yeah, that's somewhere up in the mountains. That's Leslie McDermott from Arizona. We showed a lot with Leslie. Arizona, Phoenix is not that far, so she would come in and we'd go to they had a good winter circuit.
Okay.
So like in October, November, you'd be showing horses in Arizona. I think that's Bobby Ballard. Could be wrong. And her name was Kelly McNamara out of Nebraska. Came out to California, had a terrible accident on a bicycle.
Oh, no.
Back in the 80s. Yeah. and I think that is Leslie McDermott's niece or cousin or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, that's a cool picture.
Threw it in because some people on the call may know these kids. And
Right, right. They might for sure, or they know of the families and stuff. So, uh, here's an earlier
that,
picture. Is that, or who's that now?
that's my brother and Buffalo Trails.
Buffalo. Okay.
Yeah.
Tomahawk's Buffalo Trail.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I see
So,
he's a stallion. Yeah, he was a stallion for sure.
yes. Yeah, my brother showed him for a couple of years. There was a guy in the neighborhood named Larry Lawrence. Larry was an interesting guy, an older father. I can relate. And he had an aeronautical engineering firm in Burbank that manufactured fasteners that they would use on the space shuttles and such. But he bought Buffalo Trails, brought him out to California, and then my sister arranged it so my brother could, because she was teaching her kids, Larry's kids, how to ride.
Okay. Well,
And
that's cool.
so my brother got to show him for a couple of years. So
Well,
he and Bomber would travel around the country for that length
They
of
could
time.
have been in a matched pair almost. The roan, you know, they have the same varnish marks. So
Yeah, just about.
now I got a picture. There's a trailer and it says Jeff, Sue, Jerry on the
Yeah,
side of the
that's
trailer.
the Otten family. Nice kids. Showed with them. I think they were from Missouri somewhere.
Yeah,
down there.
Missouri.
But,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Ottens are still in POA's well-known POA family right in the center of the country. Yeah. That's cool. You got a lot of cool pictures here from all over. Here's a Gary Hamilton picture. This would be, yeah, he was a well-known photographer, of course.
Apache War Cry.
Okay.
Um,
Well, you
no,
got a
no,
good
the-
memory.
Yeah, well, that's my brother. He showed him for a year or two, and yeah, good long-term memory. Yeah,
Good long-term memory, yeah. Sometimes I can't remember where I park, you know, like when I go to the airport or something, but I can remember what year Blackhand was born, but I can't remember where I parked. I'm going to skip
So
through
there's-
some of these pictures. There's your
Yeah,
mom.
that's fine. Yeah, the other one was Marty Bonison. He's a good friend. To this
Okay.
day, we talk occasionally.
Yeah.
That's Mom, and in the back, George Lalonde.
Okay. Yeah. With the hat. Yeah. Or tipping the hat up. That's
Yeah.
a good picture of your mom. Yeah. I bet I know the name. I don't know this pony, but as soon as you say it, I bet I will. It's a girl wearing a
God, my
UCLA.
memory. I can't believe my memory is kicking in. Paua Zipars.
Okay,
I do
that's
believe-
why. Yep, that is him. I know
Did I
that
get it?
face. I knew I'd know that pony. I got a picture of him from the international with some others. He became a big time champion. He won, I think, 30 classes at the international show in his lifetime. So, as an old gelding too, because he was born in the like 64, I think, or 65. So, he would have had some age on him in this picture even. So.
Wow. Yeah, no, he's a beautifully colored, and yeah, Michelle, nice kid. I just had to take the picture because she had a UCLA shirt on. And,
And got the pony in the background, so.
yeah, my alma mater. We just beat UCLA for the women's basketball. I can't believe I'm saying this. The Big Ten championship.
Big
believe we're
Ten
the Big Ten.
championship. Yeah, I can't believe there's a California school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
They took all the sports into the Big Ten except for beach volleyball. I guess there was no room for that.
well, Minnesota's got some beaches, but they're pretty cold for volleyball.
Yeah.
And 3 months or most of the year, 3/4 of the year. I like these oval back numbers here, these round back numbers, 450, 309. It's kind of funny, and all these kids that are probably waiting for games, I'd guess.
I think so. My brother's in the mix of that.
Okay.
Smiling. I don't know the horse. The girl with the yellow cap is Kim Domini.
Okay.
And her horse was Casey Mocha out of Michigan.
Okay. Yep.
I think those are the Sharts girls. I didn't know them too well. And that's about it. But yeah, I think this is Oklahoma. I had aged out at this point. I think we were just in for the banquet. And probably leaving
433 was maybe Jill Schartz. That's probably Chief Beaver Britches. I bet anything.
Oh, wow.
I think that's him. Yeah. because he was a speedster. He was a stallion, but they showed him like a gelding. You know what I mean? He was a supreme champion. And well, that's a cool picture. I'm glad you put that in there. That there was a lot of people known in that picture. I'm sure all those girls. So again, I'm going to skip through some of these. So
A Wagner child, I think is Bill or Joe.
okay.
Joe. And they put us up for a week, which was very nice. Leslie Bowers, I was friends with Dee and Leslie, nice people.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think that's Andy Otten and again Leslie.
Okay.
Paula Greiner.
Paula Greiner,
Nice.
yeah.
Just sweet. Yeah, nice people.
Yeah. The Greiners were nice. They were. So I know who this is. This is that pony there is Driftwood Siri Leota or whatever, something like that. So she was a small mare. Her dad drove her in cart. So I remember seeing her at the 86 International Show.
Oh, wow.
So here's another Gary Hamilton picture. That almost looks like Rutledge's yoke, one of the Rutledge's horses next to you.
I can tell you it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, that was, gosh, what was her name? Robin Byerly.
Okay.
Rutledge's Sugar Pep.
Okay.
I think before her was Schrongberg. That was his name.
Right. Rutledge's Yoka Sugar Pep, and then he went on to Mary Elizabeth Douglas, showed him. He was famous with a lot of families. But,
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, they probably asked me again just before she wanted it. I said, okay. So
you were popular in the match pair class, so that's
if the horse matches, I'll ask you.
Here we got somebody working on a hoof there.
That is Van Hornchild, and
Okay.
that was his horse. I don't know the name of it. Stacy or Tracy, they were twins. I never could tell them apart. And that is Susie Crean's horse trainer. That's
Oh, was it?
Susie
Okay.
and Emily. Yeah, Susie and Emily Crean out of San Juan Capistrano. Their dad built Fleetwood Enterprises, actually.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Singer Girls. When I saw them all standing together, I had to snap that picture.
Okay, that's why the LS and the RS stands for singer.
Yeah.
Okay, I bet people would know those ponies too. If you said the names of them, I'd know who some of them are. So.
Yeah, don't know the horses' names, but they're all on. They're Facebook friends.
Okay.
Some of us.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully someone will go on and watch this. So. Yeah. Boy, I'm glad you had all these pictures. I wonder what it's doing outside. It sounds windy outside. I got to call you sometime when it's nice weather in the summer. We got to do one of these.
Yeah, kind of a jinx for you, I guess, with the weather.
At least that we didn't close down tonight. Last time we could, I mean, I couldn't have had the show because I have a key to the building and everything, but I'm like, I'm not going to sit here till 7:30, 8 o'clock when everybody went home at 5 because the roads were getting bad, you know, then. But now it's just wet and windy, so the roads are fine. Okay, I'm going to scroll through some more of these too, so.
Yeah, I kind of just threw these in just if you wanted to use them because there's people that might.
Right.
Like it.
Right. This one here I'll stop at because you looked for this picture. So when you catch up, let me know. It's the girl in the red chaps and hat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that one because, you know, again, the Southern Club was active and the Pusiks, the Bolins, the Creans, Mitchells, Gibson, great people. This would have been the Landmaster family, and there was like 6 kids. Mike, who I hung out with, he didn't show. He rode motorcycles,
Okay.
but I was okay in his book because I could run fast on the horse. So, but Marty was my age. I think she was a little older, 1 year older than Mike. But she's the only person that's been, besides my family, been to both my weddings, and she's a friend.
She's a friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a cool looking POA too for the 70s. You know, that's a nicely marked.
Yeah. Uptown Charlie.
Uptown Charlie. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it. So I didn't have a picture of her. I said, if I'm going to do this, I got to get a picture. So I texted her, and she sent that one
And
over.
she sent that one. Well, that's cool. I think that's the last picture in this collection of about 70 some, because you put that in last. So let's see. Yep, it is, because there we are again with the family. So
I asked her what she's doing, and she's at Arizona at an Arabian show. So they're still. In fact, I think she showed POAs with her two daughters.
okay.
They've long aged out, but they were involved as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm trying to think of the one family that had Uptown's Charlie. I remember him in the 80s.
Allegres.
Yeah. Debbie Allegre, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. They were known in the 80s. Yeah. He stayed that dark like that. So, yeah. Well, David, this has been a lot of fun. We've been talking for over an hour, so we had a lot of people watch. I hope you enjoyed yourself and tripped down memory lane.
And it was. The book I sent to you, though, if you ever look at it, a lot of those kids are from Southern California in the Bob Lang book.
I'm going to hold that up, because we didn't talk about that too much because we were busy looking at pictures. But I have it right here, this is the actual one you sent me. I think I have another copy now, I got from, I think, Dave Morris's collection or something. People will give me collections sometimes. But, yeah, there's Koret Scottish Chieftains in here and series image. There's a whole bunch. The famous picture with Bear Paw 2 with the elk or the deer on him.
Classic picture.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of California pictures in here with California kids, and I wish this book would be available for people. I don't know if Tracy has a copy of this book or not. She might, but this one happens to be signed from the two authors. I know Bob Lang, I believe, grew up in Iowa, didn't he? I think, and then moved.
I was trying to get a hold of him, but he, as a lot of us, or a lot of people, he's passed a few years ago. But
right.
His bio said Iowa and Bloomington, which I never knew where that was, but with the internet, it's out in Riverside. So he was a school teacher out there.
Okay.
But one little thing in that book that helped me, because you can learn how to ride and how to sit and all that, but there's a paragraph in there, if I remember. I mean, I haven't opened that book in over 40 years, but you get one moment with the first impression with a judge when you walk through the ring, and that's everything. So don't go in slow. Go in with your energy, and it's true in everything in life.
Right.
You get one shot. Like when I go in for a presentation on some of these big projects, you've got to go in sharp. It's showmanship. It
is first impressions. Yeah.
It's sales. Yeah.
Yeah. That was kind of a thing when I was growing up. It was that during a time where you said, don't care what people think. You know what I mean? It's what you think of yourself. And I told the school teacher or a counselor or somebody, I forget who was saying that. I said, I show horses and I got to worry about what people think. You know what I mean? Because I'm getting judged. So they just kind of laughed or, just kind of dismiss me, but that is true. You know what I mean? You don't worry about what people think, but when you're showing, you definitely got to put your best foot forward. And this book is pretty cool because it's called A Basic Guide of Western Horsemanship, but they used co-authors POAs basically to explain how to handle a horse and daily care of a horse, and then all the way into shows, what to do, and it even shows veterinary things, what to look for, and different deals that different ills of a horse, ailments and stuff. It's pretty cool. I mean, especially for a kid, a preteen or a teenager could learn a lot reading this book. So different views, and then they have markings and stuff in here too. And a lot of jumping pictures and just all kinds of cool pictures. Black Hands pictures in here with Danny Boomhauer. So I had him on my very first podcast, David. Danny Boomhauer's living in Appleton, Minnesota. So, and he was Les Boomhauer's son, who was in that famous picture with Black Hands, and that's in this book. So that's cool. Yeah, I wish I would have met Bob Lang, or at least got to talk to him as a historian, because I'm sure he had some cool stuff in his collection.
Yeah, when he started doing that book, I remember he put a call out for pictures to the group, and since he was in Southern California a lot, but there was a lot of people, as you say, that he pulled probably from the national office, and
Right.
so forth. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Yeah, they thank a lot of people. Like there's pictures in there from the Murfelds and stuff, and the Chuck Woodward family, and the Everett Wood family. So was that your dad, Everett?
That was my dad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Sunland, California. Keystone is right above your family, his name, and I recognize quite a few of these names. The Modlings, Roy Modling family from Riverside. I remember that because they used their name. I think the Edward Murfeld family, of course, from Marble Rock, and it goes on and on. Some of these, of course, the Dean Kenny family from Sunland.
Mm-hmm.
Finkenbinders, I've heard of that name before. Dale Denny, so the Denny's from Kansas. I still know the Denny girls.
There's a picture in there of Cindy on her stallion. I forget.
Yeah, well,
Chief Beaver.
Chief Beaver Britches, and then the picture you showed earlier that you took in that group, that was another Kansas family got him. You know, the Sharts family from Kansas. They had daughters too that rode, and he went there, and then he ended up going to Wisconsin, and I think he come back to Oklahoma. He was born in Oklahoma, Chief Beaver Britches, of course, the son of the great Chief Little Britches. So, all right, well. Again, I thank you so much for sending all these pictures and remembering stuff. And all these years later, I'm not calling you old, you know, but you're classic, right? It's classic. So it sounds like you're living the life and doing good in North Carolina. You got a young family again, and I'm proud of any POA person that's doing good in life. So thank you for being on here, and thank your family for letting you come on here and share a little time with us. So,
it was a pleasure.
All right.
I think what you're doing is important for the breed.
Thank you.
Yeah, the history. It's very nice.
I'm trying to promote POAs still through history and then modern stuff. You know, we have some episodes that are recaps of modern shows and promoting futurities and shows, but it's important to talk about the history too. So I learned some stuff tonight for sure, even as a historian, people in the pictures and stuff. So, all right, David, well, I'm going to wrap it up. So thanks a lot again for being on here.
Okay, Ken.
Okay.
Talk to you.
Yep.
See you next. Bye.
Bye. All right, that was David Wood from Charlotte, North Carolina. His phone number when I called him said Los Angeles, California, which of course that's where I grew up first year of my life, and my brothers did, and around the California, along Long Beach, LA area. So it's kind of cool to talk to David. I knew he'd have some cool stories. That's why I picked him to be a guest on here tonight. I knew I was hoping he'd have some great pictures, which he did. So that was cool to see all those. I want to thank everybody that come on and commented tonight. Quite a few people. Hello, Terry. Just seen you on there. Of course, Tracy was on there a lot. Jan. There's Sean. Hello from California. We talked about you and your family a little bit, Sean, because of David from California. There's Jan again. If I missed your name, I apologize. But again, thank you for watching. I know a lot of people watch that don't comment. So next week, weather willing and everything, we're going to be talking to Harry Chestnut from Michigan. That'll be a cool interview as well. His family started POAs in the 80s, and of course they're still in POAs today. So a lot of stuff to talk about there. They've raised some great ones. Him and Janice's kids grew up in POAs, and there's, like I say, they're still going. And then Lannon's is going to be a big episode with a lot of black and white photos. Lannon's pretty much phased out of POAs in 1969 or 70, so that tells you. And there was Lannon stallions all over. There was probably 40 some Lannon stallions that stood around the country. So that tells you how big they were in POAs in the 60s. To be, you know, that their name still is out there in pedigrees, way back in pedigrees. We mentioned Olin Ziegler tonight. The matriarch of the cornerstone of his breeding program was Lannon Sweetheart. So, and he got some of the Lannon's POAs right when they were getting out. So that'll be our topic in a couple weeks. And then we're going to have a very special episode coming up, Copper Sundance well-known POA. He's here in Oklahoma, but he was born in Illinois, I believe. He was in South Dakota. He's been in many states, but he's been in Oklahoma for a long time now with the same family, the Belote family. And he turned 40 years old this year in horse years, January 1st. He turned 40, but I'm going to look up his birth date, and we're going to have a show as close as we can to his birthday. He's still going, still alive at 40 years old. So that's going to be cool. And then I'm getting baby fever a little bit, seeing all these baby pictures. That's cool. Remember, if you snap some good pictures, we're going to have the cutest foal contest. I think this will be the 4th annual cutest foal contest. That probably won't be until June, so you have a few months. But again, if you see a cute picture, it's not on confirmation or anything like that. It's on cuteness. Go ahead and snap those pictures, and more details will be coming about how to enter that, in May or whatever, and we'll probably air that at the beginning of June before we really get busy in the show season. So, again, I want to thank everybody for watching the 4th episode of the year and the 105th episode of my POA podcast, Black Hand and Beyond. Thanks for all the support from you guys. It means a lot. Enjoy the song. See you back here at 6:30 Central Time next Tuesday from Studio J. Thank you to Jackson's Auto family and all the support I get from them in Studio J and helping me get this show going every time we do it. So good night, everybody. See you next week.
My BFF is a POA. We go together like PB and J. It takes talent, it takes brains, mixing us together in the celebrate. Don't get down, we just saddle up, set out to win a rhythm of the whole run up. All different partners and potentiality. My pony and me.
Come join the family.